Very good afternoon to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to the 2021 Annual Open Forum for the Cedar Provident Fund. This Open Forum is brought to you by Axis Pension Trust, your reliable partner in pensions. Axis Pension Trust is your administrator for the Cedar Provident Fund. My name is Jeff Asmeni, and I'll be your MC for this Open Forum. For all of you who have joined us, we are happy that you have. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we'd like to say you are welcome. And for those who are joining us on this third occasion, we'd like to say we are happy that you have joined us again. We look forward to an exciting and engaging session this afternoon with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to begin straight into our program with an opening prayer. And I'm happy to invite our colleague and friend, Collins Tamate, to pray for us as we begin. Please let's put our hands together for him.
Shall we close our eyes, please? Father, in the name of the Lord Jesus, we thank you for this gathering. As we begin this session, we commit the session into your hands. It's our prayer that you steer the affairs of this session. And at the end of the day, we shall give you all the glory and honor. In Jesus' name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Collins, for that short and powerful prayer. We would like to take a welcome and opening remarks from the Chief Executive Officer of Axis Pension Trust. He would also introduce to us the Board of Trustees of the Cedar Provident Fund. Please help me welcome Mr. Efriye Owari, CEO, Axis Pension Trust.
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is great to have you again. This is our third open forum, if my memory serves me right. And it's a delight to have you at this year's event. So for those of you who have been following this event, the purpose really is to foster a culture of trust and transparency. In the last 3 years, those of us who were in Ghana and were following the financial sector would have realized that there was a big storm with so many financial institutions being taken down by the cleanup exercise. And for you and I who are investors in the capital market, it teaches us a very important lesson. The fact that we cannot be passive when it comes to our investments. Particularly for those of us who invest in the pension schemes, we have all our monies, probably our biggest financial investments in our pension accounts. And so we can't take this kind of forum for granted. So essentially, this forum has been designed to bring your service providers closer to you so that you can ask all the questions and seek clarification for the things you don't understand. And we are happy this afternoon to have our Board of Trustees with us to support the management team in providing answers to the questions that agitate your mind. Let me start by introducing our trustees and some dignitaries or senior executives of our service providers we have in our midst. To my immediate right is Mr. Alvin Foley. He is the head of custody at Zenith Bank. Next to Alvin, we have Mrs. Dorcas Okansi. She is a trustee. The chairman is sandwiched between the two ladies. He is Mr. Robert Benin. The lady next to Robert is our legal counsel and also doubles as the board secretary. That's Mrs. Louisa Sian. Next to Louisa is Mr. Matthew Money, our CFO and the trustee. And the gentleman at the extreme end represents our auditor, Mr. Gilbert Lomofio. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is your event. Your trustees and our management team are ready to provide all the answers you may seek. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Efriye. And so, just like Efriye has mentioned to us, this is a platform that allows us to account to you, the members and owners of the Cedar Provident Fund. Last year, when we had the same open forum, we were tasked with certain activities as an administrator. And so we want to begin the various discussions on what we have done so far as those assignments are concerned. The first item or list of items that we're supposed to report back on had to do with beneficiary details or capture details in our system, insurance cover, updates on insurance cover, as well as digital platforms that we are making available to you, the members. The last one will also be a discussion or an update on our exposure to PBC and Edendale. And so to give us an update on these matters which arose from our last meeting, we would like to invite on the first three issues, the General Manager here at Access Pension Trust, Pakofi Ankoma.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen. We are indeed very happy to have you with us this afternoon. As Jeff mentioned, I have three items I would want to discuss with you. The first issue has to do with the life insurance cover, and I'm happy to say that even before last year's event, our maiden open forum that was held at the University of Ghana, we ran a survey, we conducted a survey, and it came out that our clients will be interested to have a life insurance policy linked to their pensions account. We at Access are a listening company. So what we did was that we introduced the life insurance cover, which is underwritten by Hollard, and instead of you paying, we made it free to you. And I think this is a good point to say thank you to us, or clap for us. But not just that, you and your employers have the opportunity to enhance this cover. Now, this cover gives a basic, you have a basic cover of 5,000 Ghana cedis. In case you, God forbid, you pass or you are deemed medically incapacitated permanently. But as an institution, as a company, as an employer, you still have the option to do a bit more on the life insurance cover additionally. And our relationship managers are available to assist you on that. On the issue of beneficiary details, we are happy to also say that we have successfully updated the beneficiary details we have in our records. Those who completed the hard copy forms, we've updated. For those that are yet to complete hard copy forms, luckily for you, we've gone digital. The world is moving away from paper documents to e-forms. So now with access to our online portals, you can go on our online portal and update your beneficiaries. You can nominate your beneficiaries there, and at any time you feel or you deem necessary, you could always update it without the interference of your relationship manager or employer. And this you can do, as I mentioned, on our online portal. So visit www.accesspension.com, go to the login page and opt for the member login. There you can access your account information, etc., and also update your beneficiaries. It looks like I'm here to give a lot of good news. On the digital platforms, I also have good news on that. We are happy to introduce to you our USSD short code, that's star 1860 hash. We say 1860 because you start work at 18 and you retire at 60. I don't think you can forget this. So star 1860 hash. Something that you should remember easily. And that is the door to access. You don't need a sophisticated phone to access that service. Just with your YAM phone or whichever phone you have, once you dial star 1860 on MTN, you should be able to access and start a pension account all the way to enquiries, and then withdraw from your pensions account if you deem necessary. We have not just done the USSD or introduced the USSD, we've also introduced Afrakuma. Afrakuma is our WhatsApp chatbot, and it's available on Telegram and also on WhatsApp. So just send hi or hello to Afrakuma on 026 1860 000. Let me take that again. 026 1860 000. You can do a very similar transaction like I mentioned with the USSD. For our employers on Cedar Provident Fund, we've also introduced our upload option on our CRM. That's our employer, what's the name? The online portal. So now employers do not need to send or submit their schedules through emails to their relationship managers. The CRM gives you a more secured way of submitting your schedules, and it helps us promptly credit your contributions once it's uploaded. To buttress this point, we have also rolled out just recently no voucher, no contribution payment, and the custodian is here. So without uploading your contribution schedules and generating a payment voucher, you're unable to make payment to the custody accounts at Zenith. This is also in a way to help us timeously credit your contributions and make sure that you get the value that you deserve when you make contributions. Lastly, and I think you should be aware of the rollout of the national IDs. That's a Ghana card to replace the social security numbers. SNIT is already rolling out, merging your SNIT numbers with the national IDs. Axis has already gotten in touch with your employers to try and get your Ghana IDs. The National ID, National Identification Authority confirms that by July 15, that's next week, they are going to open their doors to all of you, those of you who do not have the national IDs, to also have access to get your national IDs done for you. That way we are also able to update your records with this. On that note, I say thank you very much and I wish you the best.
Thank you very much, Pa Kofi. The next update from our last year's open forum will be given to us by the Chief Investment Officer here at Access Pension Trust. He will be updating us on our exposure or the exposure of the fund to PBC and Edinburgh. Please let's make welcome Nana Riafi Buama.
Good afternoon to everyone. So the first update will be on PBC. For PBC, the Cedar Provident Fund had a total exposure of about 3.8 million Ghana cedi, which is due us but hasn't been paid because of the default by PBC. Now the bondholders, when I say the bondholders, I am implying all the investors that invested in the PBC issue reached an agreement on the 18th of June with PBC, which stipulates payment to be made to bondholders in 2 installments, with the first 20 million of the outstanding 127 million principal already paid on the 9th of June, and the last installment of about 107 million Ghana cedi to be paid on the 9th of July. I'm happy to say the Cedar Provident Fund have received the pro rata payment due to the scheme from the first installment payment. We are looking forward to receiving the last installment as promised by PBC on the 9th of July, and that would effectively resolve the PBC debt situation. Regarding Edendale, discussion is still ongoing with Edendale to get the scheme's investment back. But then, given the Board of Trustees' commitment to resolve and recover this amount as soon as possible, the board has reached an agreement with a third-party buyer who has agreed to buy the exposure from the scheme. The third-party buyer will subsequently pursue recovery with Edendale. We are very, very confident that this transaction will close within the next 9 months. And I'm also happy, to announce that we've even received the first installment from this particular transaction. The scheme have received about 3 million from the third party, and we are looking forward to getting the full amount invested, by Q1 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nana. Nana is our Chief Investment Officer here at Access Pension and is also responsible for the scheme Cedar Provident Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be taking a series of presentations by respective individuals. We encourage you that during these presentations, kindly feel free to put up any questions that you may have in our Q&A chat box so that we can respond to it. We will respond to your questions in two different ways, either online or we would call our presenter to speak to your question. And so between now and by the time we get to the Q&A session, kindly feel free to put up any question that you may have. We would like to continue with our forum and take a report from the trustees or the Board of Trustees. And this report will be given by the Chairman of the Board of Trustees, Mr. Robert Benin. Please let's invite him with a round of applause.
Good afternoon and welcome to the third Access Pensions Forum for members on the Cedar Provident Fund. It's really a delight to present the report from the Board of Trustees. And this is the Cedar Provident Fund annual report for the year ended 31st December 2020. Over the past year, many lives and livelihoods have been affected by the global pandemic, the scale of which has not been experienced since the Spanish flu pandemic over a century ago. This pandemic has exacted a horrific human toll and has upended our way of life permanently. Our heartfelt prayers go out to individuals and our clients who have lost loved ones, to workers in industries which have been impacted negatively. We also send our sincerest appreciation to healthcare workers and frontline responders who sacrifice everything in the face of limited resources to ensure we all prevail over COVID-19. Access Pensions Trust has a fiduciary responsibility to our clients and scheme members, helping them to invest for their long-term goals. The money we manage is for retirement, for beneficiaries like nurses, teachers, doctors, government workers, business people, and many others who work across multiple industries: financial services, agriculture, formal and the informal sector. It is their money we manage, not our own. The trust our clients place in us gives us a great responsibility to advocate on their behalf and do right by them in the management of their savings. I look forward every year in communicating with you through this medium. This is always an opportunity to give an account of our stewardship of your scheme and also highlights the virtue of long-term strategy in building sustainable wealth. Most investors felt the beginning of 2020 was a time of clarity. The economy was projected to grow at 6% faster than 2019's growth rate. Nothing seemed poised to stop the growth. And then came the strongest exogenous shock we've ever seen, the novel coronavirus, proving once again that we never know what's going to happen. The country experienced for the very first time in decades a technical recession with negative second and third quarter prints. Despite the grim situation, the Cedar Provident Fund brought in a total return of 17.43%. The 2020 investment returns represent 7.51% above average inflation. The scheme's benchmark is to exceed inflation by at least 5%. The scheme's net asset value increased from 206 million to 365 million, with total inflows of 167 million, benefit payments of 41 million, and net investment income of 39 million. In 2020, we were relentless in our financial literacy and education campaigns. When it became apparent that we could not engage our clients face-to-face, we took our campaigns online. We were the first financial institution to deliberately and consistently drive financial literacy education online. Through the Access Smart Money Talk, we brought to our stakeholders about 24 different education sessions, and in all reaching about 25,651 people. We do this out of duty and devotion to our mission of inspiring you to achieve financial peace of mind. The pandemic has also accelerated deeper trend from inadequate savings and growing retirement savings shortfall. The pandemic has reiterated the old wise advice that everyone requires 3 to 12 months in emergency funds. It is only after the emergency fund bag is secured that one can really invest for the long term. We believe it is within every individual who draws income to take ownership of their financial future. Saving for retirement requires a lot of self-discipline and sacrifices in the face of many pressing short-term goals. Perhaps it is because of this difficulty that few people, irrespective of how much they earned during their working life, are unable to enjoy their retirement. It should not be difficult if we allow the complementary Tier 3 retirement savings schemes, adjusted yearly to reflect wage inflation increases, to fulfill our retirement needs without any interruption. To encourage our members to think and invest long-term, we have enhanced the Cedar Provident Fund with a free 5,000 Ghana cedis life insurance cover. We are the first and only financial services company to offer this to all our clients on our Master Trust Occupational Provident Fund. We put our members at the heart of what we do, and this is yet an example of how we believe we can help our clients to invest for the long term, knowing temporary life setbacks will be taken care of with the life insurance payoff. Employers who wish to increase the coverage from 5,000 Ghana cedis cover should discuss with their relationship managers for more information. Our commitment to invest in technology to ensure we provide you with convenience and utmost confidentiality whilst investing for retirement was further accelerated in 2020 under our digital transformation agenda. We're happy to say Access is a 360-degree digitally aligned business with service platforms on mobile app, USSD, WhatsApp, Telegram, and our web-based CRM portals. By dialing *1860 hash, *1860 hash, or sending hi to 026 1860 000. Our WhatsApp chatbot, Afrakuma, will be on hand to attend to every request from starting an account to withdrawal. To complement our service platforms, our call center has also been equipped to provide you the needed assistance for 14 hours each working day from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And so you can come back from work and from the comfort of your home, reach out to our offices and inquire about your pensions. We encourage you to explore all our digital channels to ensure you are close to us. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I thank all participating employers and scheme members for your continued trust in our stewardship. I wish you well. Let's stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And that is our chairman, or the chairman for the Cedar Provident Fund. We would like to take remarks from our regulator. Our regulator is represented by the Director for Research, Monitoring and Evaluation. He is in the person of Mr. Amate Vondi. He will join us online from, I think we can put up his video. Mr. Vondi would give us a remarks from the regulator. So, Mr. Vondi, if you can hear us, kindly go ahead with your remarks, please.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your first of all, let me thank Axis, the chairman, the Board of Trustees, the Board of Directors themselves, the staff and management of Axis. We are grateful for the invitation you give us every year when you are organizing this program. And this year has not been any different. My CEO, who have been very happy to be here, but we are caught up in an equally important assignment in the Eastern region to represent him and then to make all those remarks on his behalf. Once again, let me congratulate Axis for creating such transparency in pensions management. And I think that's an example to the industry. Your IT services and your management style and efficiency is a true example to the industry. And I think we are really very proud of you. In fact, today's program is an example to all. I will make a few remarks and it will span some basic introductory remarks because you asked us to speak on the health and prospects of Ghana's pension system. And I'm happy that the chairman of the Board of Trustees, in his remarks, talks about a few things that I think I also share my views in a similar vein with all that he spoke about. Now, retirement is a serious issue, but for most of us, it only becomes important when we are getting close to retirement, and we don't appear to give it a lot of thought whilst we are in our active working life. It is a fact that at some stage in human life, both your body and your mind cannot cope with the demands of full-time work. So it gets to a point where you really have to exit or bow out to take some good rest. Pensions have become relevant and will continue to be relevant. This is because the traditional means by which we have supported ourselves over the years, I'm talking more about the extended family system and the community in general, seem to be breaking down for a whole lot of reasons. It has all come about as a result of migration issues, urbanization, industrialization, and so on. So with time, pension schemes have become the necessary substitutes that gives that old age security system for people who are old and aged. and indeed a modern mechanism for retirement income provision and for the maintenance of our standard of living. This will continue well into the future because, as I've said earlier, those are traditional means of support cannot really stand the test of time because of the kind of circumstances that we are in now. Now, globally, pensions administration or pension funds management is a very serious issue that is taken throughout. I have said that in the quite recent report that I was released by the International Organization of Pensions Providers, to which NPRA belongs to, tells us that pension fund assets continue to grow and becomes a real force so far as the financial service industry is concerned. If you look at the data that they released in relation to the pension fund assets for 2019, figures for 2020 are still being compiled. But if you look at the ones that were given out for 2019, as at the end of 2019, the private pension fund assets has risen to the tune of 32 trillion US dollars. In other words, 32,000 billion US dollars. That is the extent of pension assets that we have in the system as of now. You find that a good number of the developed countries have accumulated a lot of pension assets, and maybe I may want to make reference to a few of them just for the purpose of my delivery. If you look, for instance, the Australians have 1.779 trillion of pension assets under management. That's about 132% of GDP. The Canadians, for instance, have 1.53 trillion US dollars in pension fund assets under management, and that forms about 89.1% of their GDP. The Netherlands has about 1.749 trillion US dollars in pension fund assets. And that's about 191% of their GDP. United Kingdom, or the UK, has 3.582 trillion US dollars in pension fund assets under management, forming 123% of their GDP. The US has 18.75 trillion US dollars in pension fund assets. Now, coming back home, clearer to Africa, in Egypt, they have about 4.87 billion US dollars in pension fund assets. We have Kenyans having 13.079 billion US dollars in pension fund assets, about 13.2% of their GDP. Namibia has 10.66 billion US dollars in pension fund assets, forming 75.2% of their GDP. Ghana, as at the end of 2019, also has 3.138 billion US dollars in pension assets, forming about 5% of financial markets. Now, it is clear that, and I'm sure most of us listening to us know, that Ghana began the pensions reform implementation, which was fully operational, beginning from 1st of January 2010. Now, this has continued up to this present day, for which reason we have a 3-tier pension system in operations. I know for a good number of you who are listening, you already have a fair idea what it is. But for those who may be encountering this fact maybe for the first time or going to the future, let me say a few things that I think should be of interest about Ghana's pensions reform. Now, we have what we call the basic National Social Security Scheme as what we call the first tier, the 3-tier pension system. It is administered by the Social Security and National Insurance Trust. And there's a few basic features which I think should be of interest. Now, it is mandatory for all employees in both the public and private sectors of the economy. but it's optional for people who are self-employed. Now, you can be a member when you are aged 15 years, and for a first-time entrant to that scheme, the maximum age is 45 years. The contribution rate to that scheme is 13.5% of the worker's monthly salary, out of which 2.5% is paid to the National Health Insurance Scheme for health insurance benefits. So that leaves SNITs with 11% of your salary to administer the benefits that are available under the system. The basic National Social Security Scheme provides 3 basic benefits. It pays old age pension. Then it pays what we call a survivor's benefit, very much like a life insurance policy. Then an invalidity benefit. To qualify for an old age pension requires that you have contributed for a minimum period of 180 months or 15 years in aggregate in order to qualify for pensions payment. Now, the survivor's benefit is payable on death. If you passed away and went to the good Lord prematurely, that is before you retired at age 60, or even if you retired at age 60 and you passed on before age 75, your unexpired pension payment is also paid to your dependents. What you call an invalidity benefit is also available. And for that, you ought to have contributed for 12 months within the last 36 months to qualify for invalidity pension payments. Now, SNIT pays you the pension benefits linked to your highest annual salaries, for which they strike an average and pay you 37.5% at the minimum if you qualified for pension. Technically, no lump sum benefits are supposed to be paid unless you don't meet the qualifying conditions for pension. The payment is made to you in lump sum. The second tier, we call it occupational pension scheme, and it's an employer-related scheme, and it's privately managed. It is designed in such a way as to give the contributors lump sum benefits when they go on retirement. Now, the worker contributes 5% of the worker's salary to the contribution that is given to that scheme for the payment of benefits. The money is invested, and at the point when you are exiting, it is paid to you in one lump sum. More often, the money is preserved until you reach the retirement age, or you withdraw as a result of physical or mental disability. The law makes provision for you to transfer your benefits from one occupational pension scheme to another if you change employment. Now, if you retired or passed away prematurely, the money is paid to you in. Became unemployed at age 50 on grounds of total, or you became unemployed at a minimum age of 50 or on the grounds of total permanent disability, the money is paid to you also in lump sum. The law permits the use of whatever you have accrued under that scheme as a collateral to secure pensions, a mortgage facility for primary residents. If you are a non-Ghanaian and you seek to emigrate from the country, the benefits can also be paid to you. But if as a member you passed away, the benefit is paid to your nominated beneficiaries. That is the second tier. The third tier comprises what we call Provident Fund schemes and then personal pension schemes. The third tier is voluntary. It's privately managed. And we call it fully funded because at any point in time, the liabilities of that scheme is equal to the assets. Now, we have up to 16.5% of your salary as tax-free for contribution to the scheme. In other words, you can contribute 16.5% of your salary to that scheme without tax. The minimum age for membership is 15, and even if you retire at age 60, you can still contribute to a Provident Fund scheme. The benefit is paid in the form of a lump sum. Then we have personal pension schemes also. that is originally designed for people working in the informal sector who are not covered by any pension scheme under the mandatory parts of the three-tier pension system. It applies more to individuals who want to also make voluntary contributions to enhance their pension benefits when they retire. In other words, those who work in the formal sector can also contribute and make some good money by the time they retire. I think the purpose of it is to give the individual that freedom to take his pension's future into his own hands and make sure that you make your future much better by the contributions that you make into the personal pension scheme. The minimum age for contribution is 15 years. But the minimum you reach the statutory age, you can still continue to contribute to that scheme. For those who work in the informal sector, up to 35% of their salary the contributor that confidence that his monies, his contributions, his investments will be preserved. This is more so because people join the workforce quite early. Some people may join when they're 21 years, 20 years, but he retires at age 60, meaning that over the next 40 years, he contributes into the pension fund. Somebody must oversee how these funds are preserved, invested, so that indeed in 40 years' time, the money will be available to pay him the benefits. So the regulator exists, that the National Pensions Regulatory Authority exists to perform this particular function. If you look at the law says that the most important responsibility that we have is to ensure compliance with all aspects of the National Pensions Act. That is the law that governs the pension industry in Ghana. As a result, the NPRA established standards, rules, and guidelines for the management of the pension funds. As part of its mandate, it's supposed to sensitize and educate the public on the various pension schemes. Of course, also take complaints that come from the public in relation to the management of the pension scheme. If you're a contributor, you are dissatisfied with the way you are being treated, or even you have something that makes you unhappy about the way your funds are being managed, you have every right to report to the regulator's office. So at all times, to receive grievances, complaints, and other things from contributors and pensioners, and investigate them and rectify matters. We are also required as a regulator to advise governments on the welfare of pensioners and also promote and encourage the development of the pension industry in Ghana. So in brief, that is what the Ghana's pension system stands to gain. How has the performance been so far, 10 years on, after we established this system? So far, it's gone very well. The private pension schemes have done tremendously well. And again, we therefore had to access as one of the star companies that we have in the industry. They've done so well and continue to do really well. The investment performance in the private sector in particular has been very impressive. And my prayer is that they will continue along the same path. While talking about these success stories, there are also some challenges that exist so far as the management of the pension industry is concerned. Maybe I could talk about a few of them as we get along. And we hope that we find solutions to them to make the industry grow into a better one as we move along. If you look at the first tier scheme being managed by the Social Security, it has a whole lot of challenges. Prominent amongst them is the issue of indebtedness. A good number of employers and even government are very heavily indebted to the scheme. The investment performance of the basic national social security scheme has not been the best. If you look at the kind of statistics and information that we have, if you look at the returns on investments on their assets, in real terms, they are negative. In other words, sometimes they are not able to meet even the targets of getting returns above inflation, meaning that the true value of the pension fund is being eroded. Its purchasing power is being eroded, and that needs to be addressed. if you look at the last actual valuation report, it talks about a lot of things that need to be addressed to keep the scheme sustainable and viable. I'll just read a small portion of it as the actual valuation report as was shown by the external independent actuary. It writes, the actual valuation shows that the contribution rate to pay the benefits over the next 75 years and to accumulate assets is 22.4% of salaries. This is substantially higher than the current contribution rate of 11%. Analysis of the cash flow show also that the contribution rate increases is necessary in the short term to avoid using investment income to pay benefits. The risk is worsened by the fact that the government is not paying its contributions on time, amongst other things that it says. So it means that the scheme itself is really very challenged. It's been projected that for the scheme to remain stable, contribution rates have to go up. It's been projected that it should go in the region of 22.4%, as again the current one of 11% that we have. So a lot of work needs to be done to keep the scheme solvent. What about the private schemes? We also observe a number of challenges with them. We observe that some of the schemes or some of the companies have done related party investments, which is not good, it's not positive for the industry. Some of the investments that we also observe are skewed. Sometimes they literally violate the investment guidelines that we have given. Some are also challenged with transparency and disclosure issues. I'm happy that Axis is doing much better. Even your activity this afternoon shows to the extent to which you are being transparent with your contributors to your scheme. We also observe that a good number of the corporate trustees and even the employer-sponsored schemes do very late submission of their audited annual financial statements, even though the law requires that not later than the 30th of April in the year, the audited financial statement ought to have been deposited for the previous years with the regulator's office. But we observe that this has not been done to the letter. We also observe that the very low coverage of the informal sector. The largest number of our active labor force is in that sector, yet they don't really have pension insurance. The estimate is that it's barely about 13% of the active labor force in the informal sector that is covered. We also have an issue with what we call suspense accounts, where contributions that are received are not allotted to individual members' accounts, but are kept in the suspense accounts. All these are challenges that need to be addressed going forward to make the industry better. What is the way forward? One of the most important things that we need to do is to carry out extensive public education, particularly amongst the informal sector. As I said earlier, they are the largest sector of our active workforce. And if they do not even understand or even know that pension products exist, insurance products exist, generally issues about the financial services industry and the kind of products and services that they offer exist, then they will not take advantage of that. And they will remain so much disadvantaged going forward. I'm happy that the chairman in his remarks mentioned some of the extensive efforts that you have put in place to educate people so far as your products are concerned. I mentioned something in excess of about 25,000 people having received such education. That is positive, that is useful. And I think the regulator's office need to promote things of that nature so that people will get to understand what the financial service industry, and in particular the pension industry, has to offer. I've talked already also about coverage extension, particularly to the informal sector, that needs to be pursued to the letter. The industry itself needs to educate as much as possible. If the pension industry participants themselves are not very well informed about all the dynamics about pensions, then you can imagine what will happen if they themselves go out to educate people. A blind man cannot lead a blind man. I appreciate the introduction of pension products that accompany the insurance, the insurance products that accompany the pension products that are on offer. And I'm happy that Axis has taken the lead in getting that done. I think it fills one of the loopholes that we have in the National Pensions Act and its accompanying regulations. And my hope is that we'll be able to, indeed, pension life insurance are bedfellows, and we need to take advantage of that synergy that exists between those two products in order to promote the industry. We are also looking at the insurance industry, collaborate with them more for them to introduce the kind of products that will supplement what's on offer in the pension industry. Readily, I mentioned annuities, which are just a series of regular payments that are made to an individual who deposits a lump sum of money with an insurance company as a way of taking charge of longevity risk, that is living beyond your resources when you retire. And we collaborate with the insurance industry to see how best we can put that in place. At the point, we believe that the issue of capitalization of the private companies, we have to come up again. The private companies, I'm talking about the corporate trustees, amongst others, need to be appropriately capitalized so that they can be able to employ the kind of sophisticated minds and skills that we are looking for in the running of their affairs. We hope to do that pretty shortly. The issue of indebtedness also needs to be addressed. I'm happy to see that the Regulator's Office has now been given the mandate to prosecute employers who are indebted to pension schemes. And indeed, we've started already, and we've started getting some of the employers to comply and do away with their indebtedness, and that will continue into the future. To conclude, I'll say that I'll congratulate Axis. You are on the right path. Continue along that path. Set the standards for the industry. The regulator will always cooperate with you to bring those standards to the fore. The Board of Trustees, the Board of Directors of Axis, management, staff, and all who are associated with the Axis Pension Trust, I congratulate you. And my advice to you is that keep doing well what you are doing. If you find anything that's inappropriate that you're also doing, minimize and eliminate it. Expand your services across. I have the impression that you have a high concentration in the urban areas. Those who equally need pension products and services, a huge number of them reside in the rural and semi-urban areas. Reach out to them and bring them down into the fold. I congratulate you. I wish you all the best going into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amate Vondi. We are grateful that you joined us online. Mr. Amate Vondi is the Director for Research, Monitoring and Evaluation at the National Pensions Regulatory Authority. Thank you, sir, once again. Ladies and gentlemen, we would go on with other rounds of presentations. We noticed that your questions have started coming in already, and we would like to encourage you to keep them coming. Before we bring up the next presenter, I would like to read a question which has to do with our earlier response during the Chief Investment Officer's updates regarding some of the investments that we did. A question from Thomas Wanyala. He says, what happens to my investments if Axis is unable to recover investments from other partners that we are exposed to? Thomas, we will respond to this question, and the right person to do that is our Chief Investment Officer, who is coming next. So what I'll do is I'll ask him to respond to your question, and then he can proceed with his presentation. He will be presenting on the scheme's investment strategy, performance, and outlook. Please help me welcome Nana Riafe Boama.
Thank you very much indeed, Thomas, for your question. So in addressing your question, I'd like to say investment is about taking risk for a future payoff. And then when we are investing, it is really our expectation that everything goes right. But sometimes things do not go as expected. Our goal anytime we are investing is to minimize, or if possible, eliminate these bad outcomes. What we did when we realized the investment in Edendale and PBC was becoming an issue was to impair them according to accounting standards. Therefore, the returns, you see on your schemes are net of Edendale and PBC's investment. When we are able to recover, which we are very hopeful, the amount will be written back to the benefit of scheme members. As I already reiterated in my earlier comment, last month we received about 20% of the outstanding PBC amount. And per the undertaking we have with PBC, under the supervisions of the law court in Ghana, we are indeed looking forward to receiving the remainder this month. On Edendale, like I said before, the credit risk has effectively been transferred to a third party, and I'm very confident the third party would honor the agreement it has with the schemes. Again, as I said before, we have already received about 1.4 million for the Cedar Provident Fund, with a second and third installment expected in October this year and February next year, respectively. So we are hopeful of recovery. We are hopeful of recovering, the amount in Edendale and PBC. And like I said, when those monies are recovered, it accrues to your benefit. Currently, whatever you see on your statement are returns net of these two investments. Thank you very much, Thomas, and I hope I've answered your questions. All right, now to the presentation of the scheme's investment performance and outlook. So good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Board of Trustees, and cherished scheme participants. It is a great honor again to present to you the 2020 investment performance and outlook for 2021. I would want to first go through the economic and investment overview to lay a very solid foundation for the performance presentation. The global economy in 2020 was greatly influenced by the effect of the pandemic, the disruption in global supply chain, and the widespread lockdown to curtail the spread of the virus impacted greatly economic growth. Consequently, global growth for 2020 was contracted by about 4.3% in 2020. The Ghanaian economy wasn't spared the effect of the pandemic. The country entered into a technical recession for the first time in 37 years, after contracting by 3.2% and 1.1% in Q2 and Q3 respectively. In spite of the heightened economic activities in Q4 as a result of the general election and the festive season, growth in 2020 ended at a 3-decade low of about 0.4%. On the yield front, Treasury rate fell in the year 2020, supported by Bank of Ghana's monetary policy easing and increased secondary market liquidity activities on our bond market. The 91 days and 182-day Treasury bill declined by about 0.6% and 1.02% respectively, closing the year at 14.08% and 14.13%. The medium-term 2 years and 3-year note declined by 2.45% and 0.45% respectively to close the year at 18.5 and 19.25. However, the 5-year Treasury note marginally increased to close the year at 19.85% after increasing by 0.35% within the year. We saw very strong secondary market activity, and that underpinned the Standard & Poor Ghana Sovereign Index return of about 25.8% for the year 2020. Now to the equities market. Our stock market, as we have it today, is dominated by foreign investors. And therefore, when the foreign investors sneeze, as they say, the market catches cold. So the associated effect of the pandemic on business and economic environment weakened offshore demand for equities, therefore driving negative performance in the market. The stock market recorded a negative growth of 13.98% for the year 2020. And this is, the third consecutive time we've seen negative growth in our market, beginning 2018. Now to the objective of the Cedar Provident Fund. The investment objective is to provide stable investment returns that are commensurate with the investment risk and achieve positive real return across the 2 retirement plans we have for this particular scheme. In layman's language, what we are saying is we want to give you a return that exceeds inflation by at least 5%, or do better than the 1-year Government of Ghana Treasury bill rate. Regarding how we executed our investment strategy for 2021, the table you see shows a significant increase in our Government of Ghana Treasury allocation, whilst we cut back on the bank fixed deposit exposure in 2020. The increase in the Treasury allocation was because of its safe haven status, particularly during the height of the pandemic. We also strategically increased our exposures in equities during the course of the year. If you realize 2019, our equity exposure was about 5.2, and that increased to about 6% by close of year 2020. And the idea behind that was lowering the purchasing price of our key equity holding, as we saw the decrease in price in 2020 as an opportunity, to increase our stake in our top equity picks. Now over here, we showed the composition of the Cedar Provident Fund. About 83% of the scheme's portfolio is invested in Government of Ghana securities and quasi-government securities. Following Government of Ghana securities and the LGSA is our investment in equities. And our current exposure in equities is about 6.1% of the total portfolio, making up 21.3% of the total 346 million total asset under management. Next to equities, our exposure to fixed deposit, corporate bond, and mutual fund, together making up 6%, 3%, 2%, and 1% respectively, all rounded to the nearest whole number. Now this chart shows the evolution of the Cedar Provident scheme since inception. Beginning 2013, or midway 2013, the fund's AUM grew from 8.73 million to the current 365.22, representing a whole 42 times growth in the size of the fund. Again, this is evidence of the Board of Trustees' stewardship of your investment. Now over to the main discussion point. The Cedar Provident Fund returned 17.43 at a global level for the year 2020, outperforming inflation by 7.5%. The long-term return is even more impressive, with a 5-year CAGR showing a return of about 18.29. Again, miles ahead of our inflation and treasury bills benchmark. This return, however, may be different from what is reflected in your account. The fund applies a life cycle investment strategy where members are allocated to different investment packages based on their age. Clearly, we believe investment needs and appetite towards risk tend to differ with age. So the scheme has been designed to place younger participants in a more aggressive portfolio called the Cedar Provident Moderate Portfolio. And our older, folks are allocated into the Preservation Portfolio. So for members who are below the ages, of 45, you would have experienced or seen a return of 16.74% on your funds, whilst our older, members would have seen 18.13. The difference in performance is obviously driven by the performance of equity. Given the negative returns in equity, the moderate portfolio returned, lower than the preservation portfolio, which has no equity allocation. On a cumulative since inception basis, we'd realize the average performance for the scheme is about 328%, again outperforming inflation by over 160%. Now let's talk about the economic outlook for 2021 and our portfolio strategy going forward. The global economy is expected to rebound sharply in 2021 following the depressed growth in 2020. The IMF is forecasting a global growth of about 5.4%. In Ghana, the Ministry of Finance expects growth to come in at about 5%, whilst the IMF is projecting about 4.5% growth rate. And we are expecting recovery in commodity prices, especially crude oil, to drive this growth. However, we see a major, tailwind to our growth. And key among the tailwind is the rising debt to GDP level, hovering around 77% as we speak today. Again, the delay in vaccinating the majority of the population can hamper or hinder growth, going forward, should there be a spike in the virus again. On portfolio strategy, our goal is to build resilient portfolios in any economic and business cycle, whilst we look to take tactical advantages in dislocation in asset prices. In this regard, Government of Ghana intermediate term securities shall continue to be the dominant asset class. We believe that segment of the yield curve offers a healthy risk-adjusted return, whilst being liquid enough to support our portfolio management strategy. The fund shall opportunistically pick up yield in quasi-government securities to enhance portfolio return. And the available quasi-government securities we have on our market is the Esler PLC bond and the Dachi bond. We anticipate downside risk to local currency, and if we get into the position where we feel the cedi is vulnerable to the major trading currencies, the plan is to shift some of our government bond securities into Government of Ghana Euro bond to serve as a hedge against the currency depreciation. We remain quite pessimistic about the general credit environment, and therefore, for this year, we don't plan to add any significant exposures to our credit or corporate bond portfolio. And for the existing corporate bond portfolio we have, we will do a comprehensive evaluation to determine whether they are still a hold or we should, dispose them of. In equities, we would maintain our allocation in line with our strategic asset allocation, which is between 10 to 15%. And when we are thinking about investing in equities, the underlying, goal or what we look out for are companies with very resilient balance sheet, little debt, companies that have shown consistent high returns on equity, companies that are leaders in their industries and also selling at a discount. We believe the general stock market is undervalued. We've seen a 36% plus return already, and we feel, there are still, more room to go. And therefore, we will not turn down the opportunity to buy some of the great companies we have on our market at current valuation. I'd like to end my presentation by quoting a book. And the quote is, "In the initial years, compounding will test your patience, and in latter years, your bewilderment." And I guess, for those of us who have, stayed invested in our Cedar Provident scheme, we are at a point where the investment returns currently exceeds monthly contribution from your employer, and that is the power of compound interest. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nana Wiafe. Nana Wiafe is the Chief Investment Officer here at Access Pension Trust. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to again reiterate that we are happy to respond to your questions that you will put up. And so if you have any questions for Nana Wiafe regarding his presentation, please do put it up in our Q&A box, and then he would come back to respond. The same will be for all our other presenters who will be coming to speak with you. We'd like to continue with the presentations and take a report from our auditor, or the auditor for the Cedar Provident Fund, regarding the 2020 financial year. I'm happy to invite the partner at the auditing firm, which is John K. & Co., in the person of Mr. Gilbert Lomofio. Please let's put our hands together for him.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all of us. I now proceed to read the independent auditor's report to the members of the Cedar Provident Fund. And I begin with the opinion. Opinion: we have audited the accompanying financial statement of Cedar Provident Fund, which comprise statement of net asset available for benefit at 31st December 2020, statement of changes in net asset available for benefit, statement of cash flows for the year then ended, a note to the financial statement, which includes a summary of significant accounting policies, another explanatory note as set out on pages 24 to 34. In our opinion, the financial statement gives a true and fair view of the financial position of the scheme at 31st December 2020 and its financial performance and cash flows for the year then ended, in accordance with International Financial Reporting Standards, and in the manner required by the National Pensions Act 2008, Act 766, and the Occupational and Personal Pension General Regulation 2011, LI 1990. The basis for opinion: we conducted our audit in accordance with international standards on auditing. Our responsibilities under those standards are further described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of the financial statement section of our report. We are independent of the fund in accordance with International Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, including International Independent Standards issued by the International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants, and we have fulfilled our other ethical responsibilities in accordance with the code. We believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. Mr. Chairman, if you permit me, I'd like to skip reading the responsibilities of the trustees and the auditors, and then I'll skip to go and read key audit matter. Thank you very much. In accordance with the international standards on auditing, this part of our report is intended to describe the matters communicated with those charged with governance that we have determined in our professional judgment were most significant in the audit of the financial statement. The first one is income recognition. The scheme generates income largely from investment of the asset of the scheme, made up of members' contributions, as well as the undistributed portion of the asset of the scheme brought forward from the previous accounting period. Some of these investments straddle the end of the accounting year under review, and hence a key consideration for the appropriate recognition of the income of the scheme is the cutoff date. The income of the scheme for the year should be recognized only if they accrue or are derived during the year up to and including the year-end date, being 31st December 2020. Income that accrues beyond this date should be recognized in the following accounting year. To ensure that in recognizing income, the cutoff dates have been taken into consideration, the audit team performed the following procedures. 1. We reviewed the design and implementation of the scheme's income recognition procedure to determine the adequacy of controls over the scheme's investment valuation procedures, and income recognition at the year end. We obtained the evidence of the existence and accuracy of interest income thereon of a sample of significant investment whose maturity date are after the year end by reviewing their particulars and recomputing the expected year-end interest income. And finally, we evaluated the adequacy of the accounting policies and the disclosures on income recognized in the scheme statement of changes in net assets available for benefit. The second issue is on impact of COVID-19. The COVID-19 global pandemic had an impact on almost all sectors of the economy within which the scheme operates during the year under review. For the purposes of ensuring that amount and disclosures made in the financial statement show a true and fair view, having had regard to the effect of the pandemic, management was expected to reassess the assumptions and judgment underlying estimates made and their related disclosures to recognize an expected credit loss or an impairment of assets where, as a result of the pandemic, such a loss or impairment must be recognized in accordance with the International Financial Reporting Standard. The audit team performed the following procedures to ensure that the effect of the pandemic have been taken into consideration in preparing the financial statement. 1. We assess the level of compliance with the policies and directives from the Government of Ghana and the National Pensions Regulatory Authority on the pandemic, which are applicable to the operations of the scheme. 2. We review the credit risk assessment of the scheme's assets as a result of COVID-19 and review the adequacy of procedures performed to determine the impairment provisions made. And finally, we perform the procedures to determine the accuracy of the level of expected credit loss and impairment recognized in the financial statement. Report on other legal and regulatory requirements. Compliance with the requirement of Section 137 of the Companies Act 2020, Companies Act 2019, Act 992 of Ghana. We have obtained all the information and explanation which, to the best of our knowledge and belief, were necessary for the purpose of our audit. In our opinion, proper books of account have been kept by the fund so far as appears from our examination of those books. The audit opinion was signed by John Armstrong Yao Klinogo, whose practice number was ICAG/P/1116, and he did so for and on behalf of John K. & Co., which practice number is ICAG/F/2021/128, and it was signed on the 24th of April 2021. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. That was Mr. Gilbert Lomofio, partner at John K. & Co. They are the auditors for the Cedar Provident Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, before we take the next presentation, which will be on governance, we would still like to remind you that you can put up questions for any of the presenters that you have, any of the presentations that have been presented to you. And so we noticed that some questions have already started coming in for response. for our Chief Investment Officer. We will respond to them at the appropriate time. Kindly keep them coming. If you have any question also for our auditor and for the next two presenters that will be making presentations to you, kindly keep them coming and we will respond to them accordingly. The next presenter is the Chief Legal Officer at Axis Pension Trust. She would present on the scheme's governance. Please help me welcome Mrs. Louisa Siao.
Good afternoon to our trustees and good afternoon to all our members. And thank you for joining us this year as well. So as has been the practice each year, we meet with members of our schemes. Today we've got Cedar Provident Fund. And the purpose of this is to engage with you further and then update you with regards to reforms and new policies and systems that we've put in place for you as our members. As has also been the practice, we update you. Last year, we updated you on customer service enhancements, the use of our digital platforms. And this year, we believe it's time to inform you about the governance structure that the Board of Trustees and the Corporate Trustee has put in place to ensure that your schemes are managed and managed properly. We at Axis believe that good pension scheme governance is very relevant and is directly linked with good performance of your fund. And we also believe that good performance of your fund means your benefits accrue year on year. And because of that, we have 3 principles that guide us in the governance of your scheme. These principles are trust, transparency, and accountability. Now, over the years, we have developed different systems, one of which is this open forum that we bring to you every year. Now, it brings us closer to you and gives us the opportunity to be transparent with you as our scheme members. Our Board of Trustees, who are the managers of your schemes, are equipped with various skills, and based on these skills, they take certain decisions that they believe is in the best interest of your scheme. Now, one of these decisions is in the form of policy making. We currently have a conflict of interest policy that requires that any trustee on the scheme who has an interest in any decision that is being taken at the trustee level is bound by a duty to disclose his interest. And based on the disclosure, the Board of Trustees will decide, based on the policy, whether that trustee should be part of the decision-making process. We believe that this is very relevant when it comes to good governance. The trustees also use subcommittees, and these allow them to delegate powers to either management of the corporate trustee or external professional experts. And the whole idea is that certain decisions of the scheme require more in-depth analysis, and sometimes some of these decisions cannot be taken at the normal trustee meetings. And therefore, with your interest at heart, and to ensure that all the decisions that are taken are in the best interest of the scheme members, sometimes these decisions are delegated to subcommittees. Trustees meet regularly, and it's to make sure that your schemes are being governed in accordance with not just the Act, the regulations, the policies, and also to meet and find out what reforms are out there and what they need to do to improve and enhance the good governance of your schemes. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of the principles is transparency, and we do this in various means. Today is an example. We've also, on a quarterly basis, send you reports on how the various schemes are performing. We update you on new improvements. We also send you alerts on contribution payments, and all these measures that are being taken is with the objective to be as transparent as possible to you. Mr. Nanari Afe, our Chief Investment Officer, gave you an update on PBC and Edendale. This is an issue that was addressed last year, and we feel the need to keep you informed, and we've also given you an update on that this year. We also, with regards to reporting and disclosure, it's not just about the scheme. We do that when it comes to our regulator. We submit reports on time. If there are any issues that come up with the management and administration of your scheme, we do well to sit down and inform them. Good governance also requires payment of fees that is due the trustee, and we make sure that that is done. From Mr. Amate Vondi's presentation, he commended Axis and the Board of Trustees for that good job being done. So clearly, we know we are not there, but at every step of the way, we are trying to improve the governance of your scheme, which in effect improves the performance of the fund. Further to this, we ensure that there's independence. So today we've got Mr. Alvin Abafoli here, who's the custodian. We also have fund managers, and we ensure that there's proper independence so that they are allowed to carry on their jobs without any undue influence. As part of good governance, we have set up an internal audit and risk function. My colleague, Mr. Selom Day, who will be presenting after me, is in charge of that function. Now, in addition to the job of the trustees to ensure that all the various arms and the various service providers are being compliant with whatever policies that there are, the internal audit and risk function is also there to identify any possible risks, find out what measures we can put in place in instances to prevent it, or in other instances, how we can mitigate this. He also serves as another self-checking mechanism, and he makes sure that all internal processes are being followed. And these are all measures that the Board of Trustees, in conjunction with your corporate trustee, Access Pension, has put in place to ensure good governance. During this open forum, as Mr. Asmeni has already mentioned, we want you to send us any suggestions with regards to good governance that you would like to see, and we are very open to your ideas. Thank you very much, and I'll hand over to Mr. Selom Day.
Thank you very much, Louisa, our Chief Legal Officer. Good afternoon to everyone, and I'm here to present a report on the risk management of the Cedar Provident Fund. Now, in Axis, our risk management process begins by identifying the various stakeholders, and you, the members, are our number one stakeholders as far as this Provident Fund is concerned. And so we try to recognize your needs and satisfy them. Secondly, we also try to understand the objectives of the scheme. And as a result of that, we're able to communicate information in a form and within a time frame that facilitates management decision making. And all this builds into the risk management process. Now, these are the key areas we are looking at in terms of risks affecting the Provident Fund. And they have to do with the scheme governance and management, scheme investments, scheme administration, as well as communication with members. In terms of scheme governance, my colleague has touched on various activities that they are undertaking to manage the scheme in a judicious and transparent manner in order to engender trust, accountability, and transparency. As part of the internal audit and risk function, we ensure that those activities are indeed undertaken on the ground, and that there's independence and transparency in the management of the fund. All the activities my colleague touched on are indeed happening on the ground as far as risk management is concerned. In terms of scheme investments, we've already had a presentation from our Chief Investment Officer regarding how our investments or the scheme assets are put to use. Our investment policy is very much aligned with the regulators' directives, that's NPRA, and we ensure that our thresholds and investment categories go according to what the regulator prescribes. So all the risks surrounding investments are also managed and mitigated as far as the risk management function is concerned. The administration process, how do we record, process, and report information? That's very important. If you look at how contributions are processed, how redemptions are processed, and other operations functions, how those activities are undertaken in a manner that assures risk, recognition of risk, and management of risk. Also, communication and reporting in terms of regulatory filings and communicating with our members in order to ensure a proper customer experience. All these risks we try to manage as far as risk management is concerned. Now, I started off by indicating that first process, or some of the preliminary processes we undertake as far as risk management is concerned, is to identify who our stakeholders are, their needs, and try to identify the objectives of the scheme. In doing that, we have systems and processes in place to identify the various risks affecting the scheme. And when we identify these risks, we try to evaluate them by assessing and analyzing their likelihood of occurrence and the impact they may have if they do occur. This helps us to prioritize the risks in order to ensure that we mitigate those risks and also accommodate the ones we can accommodate. We also have to record these risks in a risk register that is reviewed on a regular basis to ensure that they are current and reflect the environment out there. Now, after recording these risks, obviously we have controls built in our systems and processes to ensure that these risks are mitigated and managed. And these controls are reviewed regularly to ensure that they are effective to manage the risks we have identified and recorded and reviewed. The quarterly reviews and audits I just spoke about, as far as checking the effectiveness of the controls we have in place are concerned, are built in an annual audit plan that looks at ensuring that the scheme is properly governed in a transparent manner through regulatory compliance, frequent member engagement, independence, and accountability of service providers, as well as policy formulation. Also, our annual audit plan looks at ensuring that our investment policy for investing scheme assets complies with regulatory guidelines at all times. Our annual audit plan also looks at ensuring that internal policies for the administration of the scheme, including redemption and contribution processing, are complied with at all times to eradicate the risks inherent in these processes. So as part of the controls we have in place, we have internal policies as well that our officers are supposed to abide or adhere to in terms of processing the fund as far as contributions and redemptions are concerned. And so we ensure as part of risk management to make sure that they abide by these policies in order to mitigate the various risks that come with processing, recording, and reporting transactions related to the fund. Our annual audit plan also ensures that there is adequate communication with members, as you can see, as is taking place, to ensure a better customer experience, and also ensure that there is communication with the regulator in terms of reporting. If there are delays in remittances or changes in service providers, we need to inform the regulator and as a result, be independent and transparent in the management of the fund. Apart from our annual audit plan and various review exercises we undertake, we also undertake frequent risk assessment exercises. And this happens on a quarterly basis or on a bi-monthly basis. And it's basically to continually review the exposure to new and emerging risks that confront the fund. As we are all aware, COVID-19 has disrupted the way we work, and so most organizations have migrated to remote working, and this has brought about some risks in the cyberspace, IT risk, and all of that. I'm happy to inform you that our systems have been fortified to deal with those risks. We have IT controls in place, and we also have other measures of counteracting all the cybersecurity threats that confront us in this new age of IT and Provident Fund management. Our risk assessments also help to prepare the grounds for an annual detailed analysis of our risk management framework. Our framework is assessed on an annual basis to make sure that it is fit for purpose, and that will definitely help us to manage the fund well and create the necessary assurance that you need to help us move forward as partners. So in summary, this is a snapshot of our risk management procedures and the efforts we are putting in place as an organization to ensure that your fund is adequately protected and you get the necessary benefits and value in dealing with or partnering with Access. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Salom. Mr. Salom Day is our head of risk and compliance at Access Pension. Ladies and gentlemen, just to remind you that you can have access to the full 2020 annual report online on our website, and so in the event that you want to have a detailed look at the various presentations that Mr. Lomofio spoke about, kindly visit our website and download the annual report for 2020. We are actually going to respond to a few of the questions that has come in, and then we would finally bring a closure to our forum. A couple of questions have come in, especially on the investment side. And so I will read them out, and then our Chief Investment Officer will respond to them accordingly. A question from, or two questions from Mr. James Tankai. He says that the investment portfolio indicates that over 80% of the investment, over 80% is invested in government and quasi-government bills. What is the proof that this is indeed the case? That's the first question. The second question is, can we as customers independently verify the investment mix as presented? The next question is Access, and this is from Raymond Ankra. Raymond is asking, is Access considering investing into affordable housing for members in the near future? So I will leave these three questions for Nana Yafe to respond to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James and Raymond, for your questions. Well, James, I'm particularly grateful for the question you just asked. It tells me you are very much concerned about your investments. Yes, you can verify, both our investment in government and quasi-government securities and also the investment mix. And I would throw, a challenge to you. I would want you, first of all, beyond, what I tell you, to verify this independently from our custodian, right? They provide, that safekeeping of all the investments we do. And as a scheme member, I employ you, to once in a while, take that risk, reach out to some of our service providers, and then inquire about your fund. After all, it's your money. So you can verify the numbers I will tell you in a bit, from our custodian, Zenith Bank, and cross-check for yourself if what we are saying here is the truth. Now, to answer your question, I would want to refer you to page 10 of the annual report. And like Jeff said, the annual report will be available, shortly on our website. I'm sure after this meeting, our IT team would post, the annual report on our website. So this is a breakdown of our investment from Q1 2020 right through to Q4 2020. And you'll see the total investment in Treasury note and bond, as at Q4, is about 238 million Ghana cedi. And then the ones we have in LGSA, which is the quasi-government securities, about 43. So together, you would see we have close to about 290 million cedis in government of Ghana securities and quasi-government securities. And that makes up the 80% of the portfolio, as I mentioned in my presentation. Now, yes, how do you verify which investment mix you are in? You would again see the trajectory of the growth in our equity, portfolio. So from 17 million in Q1 through to 21 million in Q4. And like I said before, for our investors who are mapped onto the moderate retirement plan, you have equities in your investment mix. So the equities you have in your investment mix would be, the 21 million as seen over here. And those in the preservation would have, I think, no equities. So that is how you can verify, this. But like I said, this is what I am telling you. Of course, these are audited numbers. These are filed with the pension regulator, and this is also on our website. And I'm happy to say we are among the few corporate trustees that post our annual report every year consistently, by July on our website. You can verify that. You can reach out to the custodian and verify that for yourself. Thank you very much. Now to Raymond. Raymond, it's an interesting question, and really, internally, we have been having, discussion on how we can leverage pension schemes to provide affordable housing to our members. A lot of ideas, have come up. None of them firmed up yet, but I think about 3 months ago, we had a call from one of our fund managers who, threw in, a wonderful idea. And the idea, summarized, is simple. Are scheme members willing to take haircuts on investment return for the purposes of investing in social housing? Think about it. If this is something, members are happy, we can always engage, our regulators and see how best we can leverage, this huge asset we are managing in providing affordable housing to our members. After all, we are all saving for such, pleasant, futures. And if you are willing to take a discount on, say, an investment for the purposes of providing social housing, why not? We would push, that frontier. So currently, no. But the law also says, you can use your tier 2, your tier 3 balance as collateral for mortgages. And your qualification for the mortgage would obviously depend on your ability to service, which is dependent, on your salary. So determine for yourself if, that is, possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nana Riafe. And so I'm sure that Raymond, you are hopeful, and I'm also sure that James, you have also been answered. We would like to take a question from Annie. And the question reads, what is the reason for increasing in the audit fee from 4,500 in 2019 to whatever it is now in 2020. To respond to that, our Chief Finance Officer is also a member of the Board of Trustees, and so I'd like to invite Mr. Matthew Money to respond to this. Please, let's put our hands together for him. Whilst he comes, I would still want to say that you can try as much as possible to put any question that you may have, and then we would respond to it. After Matthew, we'll probably take about one more question, and then we'll bring the program to a close.
Okay. What's your name is? All right. Thank you, Annie. Asking these questions means you are paying attention to the information you have been supplied with. I am not sure the audit fee increased from 4,500 to 18. I think it's the audit fee payable. So when you accrue and you make payment, whatever is left unpaid is what you see. So I suspect Annie is referring to the liability side, audit fee payable. That notwithstanding, audit fees are a function of the volume of transactions that you do, the estimated hours that audit firms spend on the audit, plus a function of our initial agreement. When your fund was very small, we entered into a structured arrangement where we depressed their fees. And as the fund grows and also your activities become more complex, they would have to pay more higher level professionals attention onto your job. So I think a number of things have converged to make sure that we pay a fair price so that they can do a quality independent job. Somebody asked, how can they independently verify about the fund assets we are reporting? Look, trust is very important here. You have your board of trustees, you have an external auditor, you have the pension fund custodian who keeps the assets so that the trustee don't have access to it. You also have the fund manager that makes the decision where they are invested. On top of all of us is the regulator. I am not sure every fund manager can call any bank and ask, I want to check how many assets Axis Fund has. They will have to set a whole desk nationwide to answer that. But I am sure you can trust us that the funds that exist, as confirmed by us, the custodian, the fund manager, the regulator, are the funds that do exist. I hope I've been able to answer your questions, right? Jeff, I hear there are some more.
I think so.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Matthew. And I think the one question that we have outstanding is meant for Mr. Amati Vondi. And so what we will do is from Enyam. What we will do, Enyam, is that we'll read it out, but we will have Mr. Amati Vondi respond to you as well, maybe by email. And the question is, what changes are we to expect from SNET with regards to reliable delivery on their promise when members retire? And how soon will these changes be effected? I think certainly it is in the domain of the authority, and Mr. Amati Vondi would respond to you on that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our open forum, and I'm happy that you have been with us throughout this session. Indeed, it is a yearly event, and so anytime we get this opportunity, we also like to update you and give you feedback as well on what we expect of you as members and employers of the Cedar Provident Fund. We would like to encourage members to go onto our online portal to update their beneficiary details. As the General Manager mentioned, this is one feature that we have made available on our online portal, and so we encourage members to go on our online portal to update your beneficiary details so that in the event of your unfortunate demise, we will not be found wanting with regards to who is paid your benefits. We'd also like to encourage you to download the Axis Pension app and use the Afrakoma WhatsApp number, as well as our 1860 star 1860 hash number so that you'll be able to get direct access to your account. For our employers and employer representatives who send us contribution schedules, we'd like to encourage you that going forward, you need to update and validate your contribution schedule online on the portal before you go ahead to make payment. We expect that you make payment after you have generated the voucher for your contribution schedule. We will also want to remind employer and employer representatives that we would, going forward, be requiring Ghana numbers, national ID numbers, in addition to your SNET numbers that you submit, as SNET and National ID Authority try to merge their accounts. And so please take notice of all of this in order that we are able to serve you better. In the event that you may have any question, please reach out to us on our call center line or reach out to any of your relationship managers and they'll be happy to assist you. All too soon, we have come to the end of this forum and we would like to thank you so much for being a part of it. We would like to close with a prayer as we did at the beginning, and I'm happy to invite Mr. Collins Tamate to close us with a prayer. Thank you.
We are praying. Father, we thank you that from the beginning of this day you've been with us. You saw us through the first session and throughout the second session. It's been a successful event by your grace and your mercies. We pray, commit our journey back home into your hands. We pray that you take absolute control of us, take us to our various destinations. And as we come back here on Friday, you will be with us. In Jesus' name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.